Don't know if game day is going to happen this season after this weekend. A little bit of last week, I kind of felt like there was going to be 100,000 in the stands for the Texas game that second week in September. I was feeling good, man. I was feeling good about the
very
projected football
representative
season
of how the country seemed to be feeling about COVID maybe the last couple of weeks, and maybe you're turning a little bit back the other way now.
And then over the weekend, our friend Ross Dellinger over at Sports Illustrated reported that 30 of 115 LSU players have been quarantined because they tested positive or had contact with players who had tested positive. Shelley Mullenix, who is the Associate Athletic Director over at LSU, longtime Associate AD, did confirm the news. However, she did not specify which players had been isolated, and she also said that she did bring some good news that nobody had required hospitalization, and had a very few had experienced beyond mild symptoms. So some of the players have been quarantined after frequenting some Tigerland bars last weekend. But I don't know. T. I got two trains of thought here.
Yeah, I got a few different. I got like three different silos that I'm kind of looking at this.
And it's all none of it has any medical background to it. None of it has any medical touch to it because I don't, the
only thing I would say on the medical side is that, remember we talked about, and Brody did a great write-up in The Athletic about how hard Shelley worked on creating these protocols.
Yeah.
And talk about how she's never worked as hard or like anything. Like it's the most hours she's ever put in. I do feel like LSU protocols held up in terms of in the building and their theory about separating people and rigorously tracing everybody and checking temperatures when they came in. Like the protocols held up, but the issue is representative, or the story I guess is representative with the core issue, which is it is a bit of an impossible task what they're being asked to do. Right, this is an incredibly contagious virus that we know how easily it spreads. Look how quickly it went throughout the world, and you have to have over 120 18 and 22-year-olds, and you got to try to protect them from themselves as well as others. So with an impossible task, I think like Shelley and the protocols they developed have done a very good job, I guess, on that medical front.
Yeah, it sounded like from what they had experienced in the testing numbers that this was something that they anticipated.
Yeah.
That they knew that they were going to encounter a big case and big numbers. And
it's consistent with all these other programs as well, which she pointed out, because even the ones that aren't public yet, all these, Shelley and all these other training departments, they're all talking with each other, all exchanging numbers, because that's important. And like Jordy said, they're not releasing the names to us publicly because of privacy laws, which makes sense, but they are giving the numbers, the exact numbers, to the Louisiana Department of Health so they can try to figure out exactly what happened at Tiger Bar and how wide the spread was. And everybody sharing that information is very important. But I only bring that up to say that, yeah, she said it's actually not that surprising, and it's not different. It's consistent with what's going on kind of throughout the country where all these athletes are returning to work out.
Yeah, and then, when you look at it from what we heard about the virus early on in its stages, was that you wanted to, or if you did contract it, that you would lose the ability to recontract it.
Is that so? Is that so?
I don't know,
because
that's what I'm saying. And then
I tried to look that up today, and I still don't know that we have a surefire answer on that.
And then the other part, I think
there's a bunch of strands.
Different strands that you can get. Well, look, yeah. We don't need to get too deep. The point is, we don't know. It's still unclear the official line on if you can contract it again or not.
And so, and when the beginning stages of the test, the demographic that was being tested mainly was older people, right? And now that you're starting to see some of the younger people being tested, I think you're seeing some of the high number of positive tests. But it's also the demographic that we've been told is built to fight this virus.
Well, but that's where it gets a little tricky, in my opinion, right? Because, yes, thankfully, and look, I started reading this book or listening to it, I guess, in the car, and it's called The Distant Mirror. It's all about the 14th century. It's all about the Black Plague, and it's terrifying. Like, it could be way worse. Like, thankfully, this is not a super, super crazy high mortality rate virus. And yes, you're right. Like, young people, on the whole, just from a statistical standpoint, yes, the odds are that they should be fine. But, I mean, you do have to account for a nightmare scenario, right? And if somebody does have a bad reaction, like Tony Baselli, remember, he got it. Well, his son got it as well. That's a Florida State student athlete, and he was hospitalized. So like it's not a 100% deal. You in all likelihood, you should be okay, but you don't know for sure. And see, and that's where it gets a bit odd to me, and where to me we're seeing this player empowerment throughout college sports right now, right? Well, that's only going to continue because, and we said this kind of when they were talking about bringing kids back, this is all kind of calling to me the focus, or calling into focus the farce that is the idea of these student athletes.
Well,
these guys are much more.
There's no better example of that than signing the waiver.
Exactly, right?
I mean,
these are athletes and then students. The revenue created by these athletes is critical to the function of these schools, and so they're going to make it happen by any way possible. And I want it to happen selfishly. I love football. We make money off. Like, that's how impactful it is.
Say forget the school. Think of the community.
No, exactly, right? I mean, the trickle down effect is massive. But I do have a bit of a I don't know if I'd call like ethical. I don't think moral is the right word. I have a bit of a hang up though when you have this group that isn't allowed to unionize, is not allowed to really like. What are you're not going to sign a waiver if you're at SMU or Ohio State? You're not going to sign the Buckeye Pledge, which is just a legal document to basically, even though Ohio State's saying it's not, it is a legal document to waive liability. Like, so I have that's where I do get a little angry is that, and look, when I was playing, I would have wanted to play. I would have probably wanted to come back and work out. Like I would have been all down to sign the document, but I do get a bit, it just rubs me a bit the wrong way when, yes, these guys are being forced into all of this and they don't really have a seat at the table. So I think out of this, if you do go through with this season and these players, because these stories are not going to stop. Like, that's kind of representative of what's going on everywhere, right? People just thought everything was like, it's like over. Like, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, the amount of masks I saw this weekend was way down, and just going out. There's a couple times where I had masks on and people were looking at me like I was crazy or something, right? So these are not going to stop. And if you do play a full season with guys constantly rotating in and out of quarantine, well, then you're going to have to be honest about what these student athletes really are first and foremost.
But,
and I don't know that it's a student.
From a college standpoint, like everyone I know who got it over the past week because of Tigerland, they don't have the, what's it called? They don't have any of the side effects.
The symptoms. Yeah.
They don't have any of the symptoms. They're only getting tested because they know, like, oh, that girl got it. She's tested positive. I was with her all night. Maybe I need to get tested. It's like a chain reaction of, oh, they're getting tested. One of them came out positive. Most likely, like most of the ones I've heard are negative. A few people I know do have it though, but it's like a cold.
See, so but so yes, to the young college student, on average, it's like a cold. But what if you're asymptomatic and then you go visit your parents?
Exactly.
Or your grandparents? Like, you don't want to be responsible for that, and that is the problem. I mean, ultimately, those are the people that are most at risk here. So I mean, this, like I said, I think there's going to be more and more of these stories. The key to me, from a medical standpoint, even though what does my opinion matter on a medical standpoint, is that question of, can you get it again? Yeah. And I haven't found a firm answer, because if you can't, then yes, I think there's actually a real argument to be made about maybe the like positivity of like herd immunity and everybody kind of like letting it run through, and then you're not susceptible to it again. But I just don't know that that's been proven either way yet. So it seems like LSU's handling it as best they can. It's just that I think that these stories are going to continue. I mean, as you said, I think there's like 14 or 15 schools right now that are reporting publicly, but Clemson had 28 people in the athletic department test positive. Texas had 13 players. Kansas State paused voluntary workouts. Houston paused voluntary, kind of a funny word, workouts as well. So it's this is the beginning, not the end. I don't think this is going to be an isolated incident.